Allowed to speak privately with his attorney, Dick DeGuerin of Houston, on 4 separate occasions since 3/28 of this year. Contact was initiated with Mr. DeGuerin by the FBI on Sunday, which was the 28th, in order to facilitate the direct contacts, which included a 2-hour face-to-face meeting yesterday afternoon. The FBI has maintained continuous contact with Mr. DeGuerin since we were notified that he had been retained to represent David Koresh on 3/11/93. Mr. DeGuerin was retained by Mr. Koresh's mother, Mrs. Bonnie Halderman. As we speak, Mr. Koresh is again meeting with his attorney in a face-to-face contact at the Branch Davidian compound. A low-capacity battery previously provided to the compound has been recharged and has been returned to the compound so additional tapes can be made. Our last contact with Mr. Koresh was at 10:55 p.m. last night. Lights and sounds continue to be directed at the compound, and the electricity remains turned off. Yesterday there was a question about we had videotape returned depicting 16 children. I'll try to clarify that if I can. It is somewhat confusing. Of the 16 children that were depicted in the video given to us, 4 of those children were teenage females. Apparently Mr. Koresh does not consider teenage females to be children. So we had 12 children depicted, ages 12 and under. We have seen 5 other children, 12 and under, previously, either on prior videos that have been submitted. So we are able to account for the so-called 17 children. When we talk about teenage females, however, these numbers are not included when Mr. Koresh says there are 17 children in the compound. I hope that clarifies that situation, does not confuse it even more. We are now ready to answer some questions. Yes, ma'am, right here.
Is Mr. DeGuerin acting as any kind of a go-between for y'all, or taking offers from the FBI to his client and then returning to you with the responses from Mr. Koresh, and in that is he now acting as a negotiator?
Question is Mr. DeGuerin acting as a negotiator? At this point, he is not acting as a negotiator. We have agreed to complete confidentiality and are treating the conversations that he has with Mr. Koresh as privileged. We are not recording those conversations. We're making no attempts. We are removing ourselves to a sufficient distance, approximately 75 yards away from the compound, to ensure that those conversations will not be overheard.
To be moving the standoff.
The question is, how have those conversations been characterized? We have not had in-depth discussions with regard to the conversations themselves. Again, as I said, we consider those confidential and privileged. However, they have been characterized in general terms as dealing with substantive matters and with not religious matters. It is not one of proselytizing on the part of Mr. Koresh to his counsel, but it is conversations that are dealing with the substance. That is, how does the system work, and advice regarding what his rights are under the criminal justice system. Yes, right here.
DeGuerin has been trying to get access to his client since 3/11, since he was retained by Bonnie Halderman. Why was he allowed to talk to Koresh now? Did you feel like this was the only way to break the impasse?
Question is, why was his attorney allowed to speak with him now? We notified Mr. Koresh immediately upon receipt of the fact that he had counsel retained. Up until this point, it did not appear that Mr. Koresh was that eager to speak to counsel. And it has been only recently when he has talked, when he came back again and started focusing on what would the terms of a surrender be, what would the charges be, and in fact at that point indicated that he would be interested in speaking to his counsel. We thought it would be worthwhile at this point in time. Up until this point, we did not see what benefit would be derived by having counsel present. It did not appear that he had sufficiently focused on trying to get the issue resolved. Yes, sir.
Has this made you more optimistic that maybe it's coming to a conclusion?
Question is, what is our level of optimism that this may be coming to a conclusion? I would say that we would have to characterize this again as guarded or cautious optimism. Again, it's another matter that Mr. Koresh has requested, that we have acceded to. We are cautiously optimistic that this will be one of the significant events necessary to bring this to final resolution. But we have been disappointed in the past. The attorney has expressed optimism that the discussions are productive without getting into any additional substance. One other point with regard to what is taking place today. Yesterday we did not want Mr. DeGuerin to enter the compound. We wanted to have line of sight for security reasons. He was allowed to sit on the porch. Mr. Koresh was in a chair behind the door and exchanged and went about his exchange with his attorney while his attorney sat on the front porch. Today, as I'm speaking, they've had a subsequent meeting and he has been given authority to enter inside the compound. He has done it willingly on his own. We have in fact counseled against that. We have advised him that he will have no security from us while inside the compound, but he has willingly decided that he believes that he will be able to further the conversations with his client if he can sit down face-to-face inside the compound in a more relaxed environment. We have agreed to allow him to do that. Yes, ma'am, right here.
Will any other lawyers that have been retained to represent other people in the compound be allowed to go in there?
The question is, will any other attorneys retained be allowed to go in the compound? At this point, no. Yes, back here.
Mr. DeGuerin said this morning that he thought a resolution to this matter could come soon, as early, when pressed, said as early as today. What do you think of that? Do you think that's possible?
The question is, do we think the whole matter could be resolved today? We believe, yes, it could. It could be resolved this morning if Mr. Koresh decides that it's time to come out.
Well, follow. What are the issues that are complicating this? Is it as simple as him walking out?
Is the issue as simple as him walking out? We believe that Mr. Koresh has the power over his people, that if he says it's now time to come out, and if he walks out, the whole issue is resolved. On the back row.
Yes. Over the last 2 weeks, you have said time and time again that there is absolutely no way that you would allow anybody else up to the compound to do any sort of face-to-face negotiations. Why the change?
Question is, why is there a change now? We believe the events have reached a point where a face-to-face meeting with his counsel might resolve the final hurdles that had been placed before us to get this matter resolved. Up until that point, the only outsider, and we had in fact brought in another outsider, was the sheriff of McLennan County. We had him involved in a face-to-face. These are very dangerous times and individuals that we're dealing with. We can't forget that we have 4 people who are dead on the outside, and we don't know how many people have been killed on the inside. We do not, and I've said we have not had a hostage situation, as is classically viewed. We did not want to get outsiders involved and in fact give them the opportunity to in fact have a hostage. This has been explained to his counsel, and he is willingly going along with this. We do not believe the chances of them taking him a hostage are great, but the chance is always there.